Too bad. I'll give you as much money for compensation as you want, you poor thing. You know that Mary is the one who's the CEO, right? I'm Mary. I've been married to my husband David for 2 years. We both work and are so busy that we hardly have time to talk except on weekends, but our relationship is strong, and we go on an overseas trip together once a year. When we got married, we decided to build a new house and splurged on a mansion. I'm satisfied with our current life. I have a good friend from high school named Emma, and we occasionally go out for lunch together. Emma has high standards for men and isn't married yet, but she has a strong desire to marry. Especially, she won't compromise on finding someone with a high income. Hey, can I come over to your house sometime? And right now, I'm having lunch with my friend Emma for the first time in a while. We've both been busy and haven't been able to meet often, but we've kept in touch through calls and messages. Today, our schedules aligned. Emma and I have been close friends since high school, sharing everything about each other. Both the good times and the hard times, they all have become fond memories. Since marrying my husband 2 years ago and becoming busier at work, I've had less time to see Emma. My husband usually has weekends off, but due to the nature of his sales job, working on holidays isn't unusual. He was busy with work, and I was figuring out how to spend my free time alone when Emma contacted me, leading to this moment. Sure, my place is close by. How about we have tea at my house after this? Really? I'd love to. After getting married, my husband and I built a house, but since I usually met Emma outside, this was the first time I invited her over. After finishing lunch, we headed to my house. Upon arrival, Emma was amazed. Wow, this place is a mansion. Amazing! When we built our house, we didn't hold back because it was a once-in-a-lifetime purchase, resulting in a house larger than the average family home. Being new, the interior was still pristine, and Emma seemed to love it. We splurged a bit. It's our dream house, after all. It's so spacious and beautiful. Must have cost a fortune? It was a big purchase, but it's our home. Cost us about $1 million. Emma was shocked at that. $1 million? Is David's salary that high? Emma has always had high standards for men, particularly regarding income. Her question seemed to stem from those values. David's salary? Well, it's pretty good for his age, I guess. I tried to answer without giving specifics, to avoid any offense. I see. I didn't realize at the time, but this vague response was a sign of things to come. Unaware of Emma sneering behind my back, I went on to prepare the tea in the living room. Hey, since I'm here, can I stay until David comes home so I can say hi? Emma asked with a smile, teacup in hand. Seeing no reason to refuse, I happily agreed. Great. Where's the bathroom? This way. I showed Emma to the bathroom and waited for her in the living room. In the meantime, I messaged my husband that Emma was visiting and suggested we have dinner together. Wait, that's my bag. I got lost coming out of the bathroom. Ended up touring the house and found this. This brand's really expensive, right? Mind if I borrow it for a while? It wasn't that far from the bathroom to the living room. She probably wanted to see the house, but the bag Emma had was supposed to be in my bedroom. Realizing she had entered my bedroom without permission was unsettling. But I didn't make a fuss and reluctantly agreed to lend her the bag. Okay, but you must return it. It's a gift from my husband. Of course, don't worry, I will. Later, feeling a bit uneasy, I checked the bedroom while I was supposed to go to the bathroom. Nothing seemed ransacked, but it looked like the closet had been rummaged through, with bags and shoes slightly scattered. I decided to mention it to Emma when I returned to the living room. Emma, you went into the bedroom, right? Seems like you went through the closet too. I'd rather you didn't do that. When I looked Emma in the eye and spoke, her eyebrows twitched momentarily. You're right. Sorry. Won't do it again. Thanks, I appreciate it. While we were talking, my husband came home. I had told him in advance that Emma was visiting, so perhaps out of consideration, he brought home a cake. I'm home. Welcome back. Thanks for the cake. This is my friend Emma. I mentioned her in a message. How about the three of us have dinner together? Nice to meet you, Emma. Mary always speaks highly of you. Of course, I'd love to. Nice to meet you too. I'm sorry I couldn't attend your wedding, but I'm happy to meet you like this. Emma had been ill and couldn't attend our wedding, so this was her first meeting with my husband. After dinner, we enjoyed the cake my husband had bought with some tea. Emma's friendly nature meant she quickly got along with my husband, and the evening ended on a high note. About a month later, I started noticing changes in my husband. He would quickly look away during conversations and spent more time on his phone. He even started taking it to the bathroom and shower. It was an obvious change. I considered checking his phone at one point, but decided against it, feeling there wouldn't be anything pleasing to find. However, his behavior was typical of someone hiding something, and I couldn't help but suspect him. Our conversations at home became increasingly rare. Furthermore, his weekend work increased, and we began living like ships passing in the night. One day, I came home to find divorce papers on the table. Though I had anticipated it, seeing the filled-out papers still shook me. I immediately called my husband. I just got home and saw the table. What's this about? It means what it says. I want a divorce. I knew something was off, but tell me why. I've fallen in love with someone else. Are you saying you've been cheating? It's not cheating. I've seriously fallen for her. Though it might seem like cheating to you. How is it not cheating? Does she know you're married? She knows, but... My husband hesitated, making it clear we needed a face-to-face conversation. As I was about to speak. Hello, Mary? It's me. A familiar voice replaced my husband's. Emma? Yes. I'm dating David. And we want to get married. Hearing this, I felt despair. My heart raced, and I felt incredibly upset. What do you mean, get married? David is my husband. I fell for him the moment I met him at your house. We exchanged contacts and started talking, and things escalated. What do you mean escalated? What are you thinking? Anger, emptiness, and sadness overwhelmed me, leaving me speechless. I know it's bad. But what can we do? We were meant to be. I'm grateful to you for bringing us together. Emma said without a hint of remorse, even though she claimed to feel bad. Her voice, instead, sounded defiant. I could never forgive the betrayal of my husband and a friend I had been close with since our student days. You don't really feel bad, do you? Let me speak to my husband instead. David said there's nothing left to talk about. Can you just sign the divorce papers and submit them as soon as possible? How can I agree to anything without a proper conversation? Tell him to come home at once. What? That's impossible. He's living with me now. There's nothing to talk about, right? You just need to sign the divorce papers. I felt nothing but suspicion and irritation towards Emma, who answered nonchalantly as if she either wanted to provoke me or bore some grudge against me. Just put my husband on the phone. My loud demand didn't faze Emma, who just scoffed and replied mockingly. Whatever you say, it's not going to happen. Bye. Holding the phone after she unilaterally ended the call, I stood there dumbfounded for a while. The sleepless nights continued, and my husband didn't come back during that time. The divorce papers left on the living room table seemed to be waiting for my signature. Emma kept sending me multiple photos of her and my husband together, as if to flaunt their close relationship. My mental health deteriorated to the point where it began to affect my job. So I decided it was time to seriously consider divorce and consulted a lawyer. I had a lawyer acquaintance whom I decided to consult. After setting up an appointment, I met with the lawyer and explained my situation. It must have been tough. My lawyer listened attentively to my story. What would you like to do? My lawyer asked, and to my surprise, my answer came more easily than I thought. I want a divorce. But I want them to be properly punished. That's understandable. Let's make sure to claim compensation. We can't let the evidence they've been so kind to send us go to waste. Right. I'll claim compensation from my husband and Emma and make a clean break. Thank you for your help. Leave it to me. And, although it might be unnecessary to say, try to eat well and get enough sleep to take care of your health. Thank you. After talking with the lawyer, I decided to take the necessary steps to move on. They say time heals all wounds, and I'm starting to look forward a bit more each day. Recently, I've been able to eat meals I couldn't before and sleep without an issue. The only thing I'm losing is my husband. I have nothing else to lose or worry about. Having gone through this, I'm sure something good is waiting for me next. This thought gave me some energy. And then a few days later, Emma contacted me again. Hey, are you still clinging to the past? I want you to hurry up and get the divorce. Completely unapologetic. What's wrong with you? I'm preparing for the divorce, so tell that to my husband. That's a lie, right? You think David is coming back, don't you? I know what you're clinging to. It's David's income, isn't it? Income? Yeah, he's the CEO with an annual revenue of $500 billion. You were hiding that from me because you knew this would happen if I got involved, didn't you? My husband is the CEO with an annual revenue of $500 billion? Don't pretend you didn't know. That's why you could afford such a mansion. Did he tell you that? Yes, he told me everything. So hurry up and leave that house. It's going to be mine now. Too bad David won't be coming back. I'll give you as much compensation as you want, you poor thing. After saying that unilaterally, Emma hung up the phone. Now I understood why Emma targeted my husband. This call from Emma completely cooled off my feelings for my husband, and I started to think about life after divorce. From the next day on, I felt much clearer in my mind. In a way, I might have Emma to thank for that. The couple photos she sent today only disgust me now. Everything she sent was shared with my lawyer. After recovering from my illness and solving work problems, my usual routine finally returned. All that was left was to settle things with my husband and Emma. My lawyer had sent them the documents on my behalf. Now, we just had to wait for their response. A few days later, a reaction came swiftly. Hey! What were you thinking sending documents to my company? Emma was furious, her anger echoing. So, you were harassing me without being prepared for the consequences? Just sharing a bit of mine and David's happiness with you. It wasn't harassment. No, it definitely counts as harassment. Please, talk to my lawyer from now on. Goodbye. Hey! I hung up the phone right there. I felt a sense of relief knowing she was sufficiently rattled. Emma's calls continued, but I never picked up again. Similarly, my husband tried calling, and when he realized I wasn't answering, he resorted to messaging, complaining about documents sent to his parents' house, which exposed the affair and led to their condemnation. His messages were selfish and told me to tell his parents that it was all a lie. My disdain for my husband only grew. Returning home, having dinner, bathing, and going to the bedroom, I noticed something was off. Opening the closet, I saw that some of my bags and accessories were missing. Specifically the branded ones. I could think of only one suspect. You've got to be kidding, she went as far as to steal? I immediately informed my lawyer, who said we would need evidence to pursue this. Evidence. That's when I remembered installing security cameras around the house as a security measure when we built it. I had forgotten about them since I never had to use them before. Checking one of the cameras, I found it had recorded everything clearly. I reviewed footage from all the cameras in the house and, to my astonishment, I saw Emma stealing my branded items over several days while I was away. I was horrified. To think I was friends with such a person filled me with fear. The next day, I took the video data to my lawyer, who was also appalled. This person is incredible in a way, boldly stealing from someone else's home. This will certainly serve as evidence. But this will be a separate case from the divorce, is that okay? It's a criminal matter. Yes, please proceed with everything you have, I said, smiling eerily calm. After all that had happened, why should I hold back? It was time for her to take responsibility for her actions. Understood. But I do recommend changing your locks. Taking my lawyer's advice to heart, I changed the locks that very day. After that, I received a barrage of calls from both my husband and Emma, which I completely ignored. They even came to my house directly, but I didn't hesitate to call the police. Eventually, the calls from my husband and Emma stopped. A few days later, my lawyer mentioned that they wanted to negotiate a settlement. Asked what I wanted to do, I agreed to a discussion, provided my lawyer was present. I was busy and wanted to settle this quickly. The lawyer arranged the date. And on the day, we met in a conference room at the lawyer's office. Emma and my husband burst into the room, opening the door aggressively. Finally, we meet, you coward. Stop it, Emma. It's because she's been running away. Because of you, our wedding's been postponed. Emma was ready to throw something at me, anger radiating from her as she yelled. My husband desperately tried to calm her down. Seeing them after so long, I felt pathetic for having to deal with such people. Please calm down. If any violence or abusive language is detected, we will immediately call the police, understood? The lawyer managed to settle them down for a moment, and Emma and my husband finally took their seats. With everyone ready, the discussion began. David, you wish for a divorce, correct? We agree to the divorce. However, considering your relationship began as an affair, we will be seeking compensation. Do you have any objections? If it means getting a divorce, fine by me. But after paying the compensation, I want nothing to do with you ever again. Mary, is that acceptable to you? Of course. I have no interest in continuing any relationship with him either, I stated calmly, noticing my husband's slight disturbance. But I didn't care about that anymore. Next, regarding the amount of compensation. When the lawyer started to talk about the compensation amount, Emma joined the conversation. I said any amount is fine. We have a ton of money anyway. Emma crossed her arms and spoke arrogantly. Hearing this, the lawyer adjusted his glasses. A ton of money, you say? Yes. Aren't you a lawyer? Didn't you check? David is the CEO of a company with annual sales of $500 billion. Compensation for an affair is not a problem at all. I'll even give you a fair share of the property. Your salary must barely cover your living expenses. Emma said this confidently, laughing, and the lawyer, unable to hold back, burst into laughter. Emma looked displeased at the sight. What's so funny? Are you mocking me? Emma said, shaken, to the lawyer who was drying his tears with a handkerchief, trying to compose himself. My apologies. I see it now. It all makes sense. The lawyer put down his handkerchief, looked at Emma, and smiled. The CEO is Mary, you know? David is just an ordinary employee there. What? Emma looked puzzled for a moment, but soon crossed her arms and sneered. So the lawyer hired by a fool is also a fool. Get real. Did Mary lie to you saying she was the CEO? How sad. I should be the one saying that you. Did you verify your side of the story? The lawyer turned to David, who looked pale. Seeing this, Emma, perhaps feeling anxious, started to press David. You said you were the CEO of a company with annual sales of $500 billion, right? You weren't lying, were you? David said nothing. Just looked down, pale. Seeing this, Emma gradually turned pale as well. Answer me. You weren't lying, right? You said you were the CEO of a company with annual sales of $500 billion? Emma shook her David's shoulder, but he just muttered, "Sorry." This apology plunged Emma into despair. Emma, trembling, turned to face me and stood up, slamming the desk. "That's a lie, right? There's no way you're the CEO. I was the closest to you, so there's no way I wouldn't know." Emma, still standing, turned her gaze from David to me and now started accusing me. So I decided to tell her the truth. Just because we're best friends doesn't mean we share everything. Especially not our incomes. And it's precisely because I was close that I knew how greedy you were with money. That's why I never intended to tell you. I looked straight at Emma, without averting my eyes, and told her this. Emma, unable to hide her shock, sat down on the spot. "Then, that house is..." "Of course, it's in my name. So the one leaving is my husband, no, David. He's not going to be my husband anymore." Emma fell silent at those words. "Now that everything is clear, we will claim a reasonable amount of compensation," my lawyer said, but neither David nor Emma seemed to hear, both remaining silent. "Next, regarding the theft." The lawyer continued unemotionally, despite the couple's demeanor. It was quite satisfying to listen to. At the mention of theft, the couple finally looked up. "Theft?" "Yes. You stole several brand items from Mary when she wasn't home, didn't you?" Confronted about the theft, Emma bit her lower lip. David, apparently unaware of the incident, looked surprised. "Hey! What's this theft about?" "It wasn't me. I don't know anything." Emma desperately pretended not to know, but then the lawyer presented photos from the surveillance footage. "What's this?" "A footage from the surveillance camera." "A surveillance camera?" Emma seemed to be unaware of the surveillance cameras. Had she known, she wouldn't have dared to steal so boldly. The husband covered his face with his hands and sighed. "Our house is equipped with surveillance cameras. We installed them for security, since we bought quite a nice house." "Why didn't you say that sooner? Who would think you'd break in to steal? Plus, it means you stole the keys from me. I thought I had lost them. I wanted those brand items. You wouldn't buy them for me." So the two started arguing. Both the lawyer and I sighed in disbelief. "Please save your quarrels for later. As for the theft, we plan to file a police report." That concludes our discussion. Hearing the word police, Emma visibly panicked. "Police is such an exaggeration. I just borrowed something from a friend. You can't possibly file a police report, right?" "I didn't lend it, and I no longer consider you a friend. I will file a report. After all, it was stolen." "No! I'll compensate. Just don't call the police." "Are you going to compensate? The brand items you stole are worth a considerable amount, you know. Are you sure you can cover that? Plus, there's also the compensation." When I said this, Emma, thinking she had found a way out, turned to David. "Hey, even if you're not the CEO, you're still working, so you can pay, right? We're going to be fine, right?" David just looked down and remained silent at Emma's words. He doesn't have the ability to pay. After all, he's been absent without contacting the company, so he's going to be fired. "What?" "I told you he worked at my company. Ever since he started having an affair with you, his unexcused absences increased. I've been notified. There's no way we could keep such an employee, right?" But there's still the division of assets. With that division of assets won't be possible." "Why not? The savings accumulated as a married couple should be part of the division of assets. Aren't you a lawyer? Don't you know that?" "Have you not heard anything from David? You said he told you everything, yet you missed the important parts." Then, the lawyer presented a document. "As per the prenuptial agreement, if the marriage doesn't last 3 years, neither party can claim the other's assets. Since they're currently in the 2nd year of marriage, This applies. Emma trembled as she took the document. Like this piece of paper has any power. That is a notarized document, so it has legal force. However, it only means no division of assets. David's assets remain. Emma managed a bitter smile at this. Well, if that's the case, we're fine. David, you have savings, right? So, we're okay, right? The face of Emma clinging to hope was no longer that of the friend I knew. There's none. Because you kept on spending. The savings are gone. At David's words, Emma sat down on the floor. I couldn't feel sorry for her at all. This was her own doing. The discussion is over, so please submit the divorce papers promptly, and David, please pack your things and leave the house. That's all. It was unclear whether the lawyer's words were heard, but the lawyer and I left the room, leaving the sitting couple behind. I left the rest to the lawyer and went home. The divorce was finalized smoothly. With the lawyer present, David packed his belongings and left the house. I received a few messages from David, but I blocked him completely. I cut off all contact with David and Emma. After being fired from the company and losing his savings, David ended up moving into Emma's place, but with the theft incident, Emma also got fired. They both desperately looked for work but only managed to find day-pay part-time jobs. Despite receiving their salary on the same day, Emma, who is bad at saving, continued to spend and ended up being evicted for failing to pay rent. This incident became known to their relatives, and both were disowned by their parents, unable to return to their parents' house. They now live in a very old, inconvenient apartment while working part-time jobs to pay compensation. I heard from a classmate living nearby that they are occasionally seen at a local spa, looking completely different from before, with worn-out clothes and hair. As for me, work is going well, and I've joined a tennis club as a new hobby. I'm enjoying working on myself while getting some exercise. 6 months later after this incident, I went on a solo trip abroad, where I met a wonderful man, and we are currently dating. This past event has become an unforgettable part of my history, but thinking that it led to the person I am today, I might feel that I made the right choice and I am now very happy with my life. Water's good enough for poor folks, Alana, my daughter's future mother-in-law, said, laughing coarsely. I couldn't hide my discomfort at her vulgarity. Oh, could it be? Right after that, my daughter's sister-in-law-to-be, Raina, looked at me, her face turning pale. I just smiled slightly. I'm Sonia Rollins. Turning 54 this year. I divorced my ex-husband when our daughter, Krista, was 3. The reason for our divorce was irreconcilable differences. He wouldn't work and spent his days drinking. No matter what I said, he never changed. Naturally, our financial situation worsened. I didn't need a family like that, so I decided to divorce him. We divorced without any child support or alimony. Since then, it's been just Krista and me. I was a housewife until the divorce. When I had to raise Krista alone, I started working desperately. I couldn't leave young Krista alone at home, so I initially took on work-from-home jobs to make ends meet. Of course, life was tough. Working from morning till night, the pay was low, leading to constant saving. There were times, a day before payday, when I ran out of money and went without food. Despite the hardships, I managed to raise Krista into adulthood. With Krista becoming a working adult, I found myself with more free time and started dedicating more time to work. Leveraging my experience in simple tasks, I began creating handmade items. This eventually turned into a successful business. There's also been a change in my personal life. Krista got engaged. Not long after Krista started working at her company, she began dating a man named Nicholas. Nicholas is Krista's boss at work and is 5 years her senior. I've seen a photo of Nicholas that Krista showed me. He seemed like a fine young man. It appears Krista has learned from her father's bad example, as Nicholas gives off a serious impression. I'm delighted with the happiness Krista has found. Now, in the latter half of my life, I've decided to live as I please. That was my thought. Then, one day, Mom, I need to talk to you about something. Krista approached me after dinner. It was unusual for Krista to come to me hesitantly like this. While thinking this, I responded to Krista. What's the rush? You seem off. What's going on? Then Krista said to me, modestly, I'm going to marry Nicholas. Really? That's wonderful. Congratulations. Since I haven't actually met Nicholas, I don't know what kind of person he is. I hoped he would be just like the person in the photo. I'm glad you feel that way, Mom. I was worried you might oppose it. Krista seemed relieved that I didn't oppose her decision. Her face clearly showed relief. Then Krista made a suggestion. So, I was hoping you could meet Nicholas this weekend. It seems Krista wanted me to meet Nicholas before they got married. Considering how serious Krista is, she probably wanted to show me Nicholas's face to put me at ease. I nodded strongly towards Krista. All right. I'll meet Nicholas. I want to see what kind of person he is. Mom, Krista said, looking happy. And so, it was decided that Nicholas and I would meet. Sunday of the following weekend. I was waiting at home for Krista and him. It was just before 11 a.m. It wouldn't be long until Krista brought Nicholas over. Then, at that moment, the doorbell rang. Yes. When I opened the door, there stood Krista and Nicholas. Nice to meet you. I'm Nicholas Friedman, engaged to Krista. Nicholas said, greeting me. I felt a bit relieved by Nicholas's politeness. Krista is my precious only daughter. I'm glad her partner is a decent person. Please come in, I said, inviting Krista and Nicholas into the house. Nicholas still seemed like a fine young man after entering our home. He brought famous brand sweets as a gift. And he shared the story of how he and Krista met with a smile. Nicholas, stop it. You're embarrassing me, Krista said, blushing, addressing Nicholas. Seeing Krista like this felt fresh to me. However, the warm atmosphere changed in the next moment. By the way, is your father at work today? Nicholas asked, looking around curiously. His expression was somewhat puzzled. I was taken aback by Nicholas's question. Glancing at Krista, she looked a bit pale. She probably hadn't told Nicholas about being raised by a single mother. Honestly, it was wrong of Krista to keep it a secret. In traditional households, single mothers often face prejudice. I braced myself to explain the situation to Nicholas. Krista might not have mentioned it, but I'm divorced and a single mother. Nicholas's face, previously smiling, went blank for a moment. What's wrong? I asked Nicholas, feeling anxious. Maybe it wasn't good for me to have told him. That's what I thought. But in the next moment, Nicholas was already smiling. It's nothing, please don't worry, he said, still smiling. Is that so? I said, tilting my head, puzzled. Despite being confused by Nicholas's change of expression, I didn't press further. After that, the marriage talks proceeded smoothly. Krista seemed to enjoy planning the wedding, asking, What kind of dress should I choose? What color do you think is good for me, Mom? With excitement. Well, maybe a color you like? I responded, but couldn't quite feel at ease. I couldn't forget Nicholas's expression from that moment. Nicholas's expression went blank. Perhaps his family has strict views on single parenthood. So, I asked Krista, what did Nicholas say on the way back that day? About us being a single mother household? maybe Nicholas is facing opposition to marrying Krista from his parents. I asked, but Krista answered with a puzzled look. He didn't say anything special? Mom, aren't you worrying too much? Since Krista said that, I couldn't ask anymore. However, my bad feeling proved right. It happened one night. Mom. As soon as Krista returned, she called out my name. Her expression was quite dark, and I asked her in surprise. Krista, why such a gloomy face? Did something happen? Even though I asked, Krista remained silent. It was unusual for the optimistic Krista to look so troubled. After a while, Krista hesitantly began to speak. Actually, it seems Nicholas's family isn't too pleased about our marriage. Krista said, looking sad. Why? Because we're a single mother family. They think Nicholas will struggle because we're poor and from a single-parent home. That's an awful thing to say. It would be very hard to hear such things from the in-laws. I asked Krista seriously. Did Nicholas's mother say that? Krista nodded silently. I was outraged by the turn of events. Just because we're a single mother family doesn't mean they should assume we're poor. We've had our struggles, but now we live a normal life. I work as hard as any man. And then Krista told me something unbelievable. Nicholas's sister also said some things. Like what? I asked Krista. She said we're just after Nicholas's money. That it's impossible for them to accept us as family. Krista answered, looking disheartened. Her face looked incredibly lonely. Krista must have been deeply hurt by these direct comments. It's terrible that they would say such things about me without even meeting me. I can't believe Nicholas's parents. What did Nicholas say at that time? I asked Krista. And I remembered Nicholas's expression when he came to our house the other day. Maybe his expressionless face was because he imagined his family's reaction. It seems his family has quite a prejudice against single mothers. I started to worry about the future. Then Krista said, Nicholas defended me. After all, I work at the same company as Nicholas, so there's no way I'd ask for money. I felt relieved. If Nicholas is on your side, that's reassuring. I found myself saying that without thinking. If Nicholas had sided with his family instead of defending Krista, I would have been worried about her future. She would probably continue to face unpleasant remarks from his family. But if Nicholas is on her side, it felt somewhat better. A few days later, Krista suggested having a family meeting with Nicholas's family before the wedding. Mom, I want to have a family meeting with Nicholas's family before the wedding. I'm really sorry. According to Krista, it was Alana's suggestion. You should greet your fiancé's parents at least once. Your mother has that much common sense, right? She was told. Nicholas and I couldn't exactly refuse. I'm really sorry. Krista said, apologizing and being considerate of me. For Krista's marriage introduction, we are meeting with his family. Honestly, I have no idea what they might say. I don't really want to go, but it seems right to follow through with the courtesy. It's okay. I responded with my agreement. Then, the day of the marriage introduction arrived. Krista and I went to a restaurant near his parents' house. The reason for a restaurant, as Krista told me, was because Alana had said, We can't have you in our house when you're not married yet. There's a fine dining restaurant nearby, that will do, won't it? The restaurant Alana chose charges $300 per person for a course meal. I go there occasionally for business, but hardly ever privately. I was puzzled by Alana's choice of restaurant. It seems Alana had also chosen a cafe near their house for Krista's first greeting to the family. Moreover, Krista ended up paying for Alana's meal as well. according to Alana. It's only natural since you're becoming my son's wife. Apparently, Nicholas reimbursed the meal cost later. Why does Alana act so arrogantly, even though she's the one inviting us for the marriage greeting? I couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. But if I, as Krista's mother, refuse now, Krista will surely be criticized for being rude. After getting married, Krista might end up feeling uncomfortable. So, reluctantly, I accepted the proposal. Then, I put on light makeup and headed to the designated place. I usually wear full makeup for work, but I thought it best to keep it understated today. My outfit was also much more modest than usual. A flashy outfit might give them the impression that I'm extravagant. Given that we're already being accused of being after Nicholas's money, a modest outfit seemed wise. With these thoughts, Krista and I entered the upscale restaurant and were led by the staff to a private room. Upon opening the door, Nicholas and his family were there. Krista, Sonia, thank you for coming today. Nicholas greeted us politely. Thank you as well for today. I also expressed my gratitude to Nicholas. Then I faced father-in-law Kevin, mother-in-law Lana, and sister-in-law Raina. His parents and Raina smirked unpleasantly and looked down on Krista and me. It was clear at a glance that we were not welcomed by his family. I greeted them with heightened wariness. Thank you for giving us your precious time today. I'm Sonia, Krista's mother. It's a pleasure to meet you. Then Alana said with a nasty smile. I'd rather not have any further association, you know. Mom! Nicholas admonished Alana, but she didn't seem to care. Just being from a single-parent family is problematic enough. You must be struggling with money. Even your clothes are so plain. Alana scrutinized my outfit from top to bottom and said. Then she laughed mockingly. My attempt to dress modestly had backfired. Raina also hurled insults while laughing. You could have married someone decent. Poor Nicholas, stuck with a poor mother and daughter. I was irritated by Raina's comment. Such remarks were too rude for a first meeting. But I couldn't disrupt Krista's marriage. Excuse me. I reluctantly took my seat. Perhaps because I didn't retort. The in-laws looked at me as if they found me amusing. Krista looked at me with concern. Nicholas seemed a bit angry at his family's lack of manners. His brows were furrowed. Unaware of his demeanor, Alana was in high spirits. Today, we've reserved a course meal. It's $300. Alana excitedly told Raina. Really? I'm looking forward to it because the courses here are so expensive. We have to eat a lot. Raina was giddy with excitement. Kevin nodded happily as well. After a while, the staff brought the dishes. It was a colorful array of amuse-bouche. At this restaurant, 3 types of amuse-bouche are served on one plate. They all looked very delicious. But in front of me, there was only water. I was about to call the staff back, but they had already left the room. Only the water was left in front of me, a stark reminder. Nicholas looked at the scene, dumbfounded. Raina, knowing what was happening, laughed mockingly. Krista noticed it too and said with concern, Mom. Then, in the next moment, Alana laughed nastily. Poor people are fine with just water, Alana said, laughing crudely. I showed my discomfort at her vulgarity. What does this mean? I asked Alana. The in-laws had called us to this restaurant. Yet, they had no intention of hosting us properly. I was quite irritated inside. Alana glanced at me, then laughed as if she was pleased. Even though I was angry, she didn't seem to care. She seemed to enjoy it, actually. Oh? Not only are you a poor single mother, but are you also stupid? Did you really think someone worthless like you would be welcomed? Alana hurled insults at me. Kevin nodded as if it was to be expected. Don't you feel ashamed to be a single parent? A woman who was left by her husband, you're full of flaws. A plain woman like you becomes unnecessary, right? Kevin said, laughing crudely. It wasn't that my ex-husband left me, but Kevin's assumption was unilateral. I truly thought this was unbelievable as a human being. Raina also laughed joyfully. I don't want to end up like Krista's mother. Working for low wages even though she's a woman. It's really pitiful without any feminine charm. While saying this, she looked down on me. Mom. I'm sorry. Krista looked like she was about to cry. She must feel responsible for putting me in this difficult situation. Krista was looking down. I had reached my limit of patience. Being looked down upon like this, I couldn't stay quiet any longer. It might be time to fight back. At that moment, enough already! All of you ganging up on Krista's mother. Aren't you ashamed as adults? Nicholas yelled loudly. I was surprised that Nicholas stood up for me. Nicholas. Krista also looked surprised. Nicholas was red-faced and angry at his family. However, Alana and the others showed no remorse. Alana, still laughing joyfully, said, There's no need to defend poor people. Why is Nicholas getting so angry? Kevin nodded significantly. Nicholas's words seemed to have no effect on them. I could only be dumbfounded by his parents. They must lack common sense. It might be time for a counterattack. I had a last resort that would surprise the in-laws. At that moment, Raina started to look at my face. I ended up glaring at Raina. Then Raina muttered, Oh, could it be? Right after that, Raina looked at me and her face turned pale. It seems she finally realized who I really am. I let out a slight smile. Raina, looking at me, was trembling. No way. Noticing her reaction, Kevin asked Raina with a puzzled look. What's wrong with you? You've been acting strange for a while. Alana also looked at Raina, surprised. You're as pale as a ghost. Are you feeling okay? Alana spoke to Raina with concern. Still, Raina's trembling didn't stop. Given the truth Raina realized, it's understandable. Then Raina asked Kevin. Dad, your company is Globe Crafts, right? Raina looked at Kevin, seeking confirmation. Globe Crafts is a small to medium-sized enterprise with about 100 employees. The salaries aren't comparable to those of major companies. And I am familiar with Globe Crafts. The reason I know it is because it's related to my work. Kevin said with a laugh. What's this all of a sudden? I might look like this, but I'm working hard as the sales manager. And Kevin continued. I used my connections to hire you as a part-time worker in our company, didn't I? Be grateful. Kevin said, laughing. That's right. Raina's face fell, looking resigned. Kevin asked Raina, puzzled. But why are you asking this? Are you trying to show off because this poor person is likely employed on a non-regular basis, and you work as a regular employee? Kevin looked down on me with a disdainful gaze. This man is about to face a dire situation. I vowed in my heart. Then Raina sighed lightly and began to speak. Dad, don't you know the company's clients? The company's clients? Kevin asked, puzzled. Alana looked stunned. Being a housewife, she didn't seem to understand much. Raina hesitantly explained. I've met Krista's mother before. Inside the company. She was wearing more makeup then, and I didn't recognize her right away. Kevin seemed confused. What do you mean inside the company? I'm sure I remember the faces of the employees, including part-timers, but there's no older woman like that? I frowned at being called an older woman. But it seems Kevin was too preoccupied to notice, trying desperately to remember as he heard inside the company. However, I haven't spoken directly to Kevin, so it's understandable if he doesn't remember. As I thought this, Raina began to apologize. Krista's mother! I'm really sorry for what happened. Seeing Raina's behavior, the in-laws began to get agitated. Why apologize? There's no need to say sorry to such a poor person, Alana said. That's right. Don't you have any pride? Apologizing to a poor person like this. Kevin shouted at Raina. Raina glared sharply at her parents. Dad, Mom. Krista's mother is actually very wealthy. Much more than Dad could ever be. What did you say? Kevin glared at Raina. Being told such a thing by his own daughter must have been unexpected. Alana, too, reacted to Raina's statement with, How could you say that? Screaming almost hysterically. Raina said with a resigned attitude, Because Krista's mother is the president. I've served her tea in the company's reception room. You know Roland's Bags, right? Kevin froze upon hearing that name. Then he turned his neck to look at me. I deliberately smiled. Kevin's face turned pale. Roland's Bags. Isn't that the brand the president finally convinced for a collaboration that's supposed to happen? Then Alana screamed. Roland's Bags, that's the one with bags in department stores, right? Even my bag is from there, Alana said, looking over her bag multiple times. When we entered this restaurant's private room, I noticed a familiar bag. Alana was holding it carefully under her chair. It's a breach of manners in a high-end restaurant, but it must be her favorite bag. I told Alana with a smile. That's a magazine giveaway, isn't it? I'm honored that you're using my brand. Alana's face turned red. Then she looked down, embarrassed. She must feel ashamed that her bag was recognized as a magazine giveaway. I took out my business card from my card holder. I am Sonia Rollins, the representative of Roland's Bags. The in-laws scrutinized the business card carefully. To think you were actually the president! Kevin was trembling as he looked at the business card. Alana looked incredulous. I watched the two staring silently at the business card and said, We were supposed to collaborate with Globecrafts, but it seems like that collaboration won't be possible anymore. Such a shame. Hearing this, Kevin looked disturbed. Why? That collaboration is the most important project the president has been working on. If we cancel it, our company will, Kevin said, trembling with fear. What's going on? Alana asked Kevin, confused. The truth is, Globecrafts is in a precarious financial situation. Compared to the past, fewer people are making handmade items. When I was young, my mother used to sew everything by hand. But now, cheap ready-made products are abundant, probably a sign of the times. Globecrafts has been hit hard by this trend, with sales declining year by year. When Globecrafts' president proposed the collaboration, he mentioned it was a strategy to turn around the company's dire situation. However, I have collaborated with many famous brands. So, honestly, I wasn't very interested in collaborating with a small to medium-sized enterprise like Globecrafts. Initially, I declined the president's proposal, but eventually, I was persuaded by his enthusiasm and agreed. We decided to collaborate with Globecrafts to make bags. But now, that's a thing of the past. Kevin was trembling. He must be terrified of what's to come. Ignoring Kevin, I quietly said. The collaboration with Globe Crafts didn't seem to offer much benefit. I was just moved by the president's enthusiasm. But a company that looks down on Krista. I stared at Kevin with a cold gaze. Kevin was sweating under my stare. Then, in the next moment, he apologized to me. What? While Alana was confused by Kevin's apology, he desperately sought my forgiveness. Krista and Nicholas were also surprised by Kevin's apology. I'm truly sorry. Kevin is apologizing, clearly not caring about how it looks. To me, Kevin's apology doesn't resonate at all. After all, an apology that comes only after he realizes my position is just to protect himself. There's no genuine remorse there. I spoke with a chillingly cold voice. An apology now? After you've looked down on Krista and me all this time. To think that an apology would suffice after all this. Kevin's mindset must be overly optimistic. Then, realizing that his apology wouldn't turn the situation around, Kevin quickly stood up. It was merely a performance after all. Alana, looking bewildered at me, said, We're going to be family, so you'll forgive us, right? She said that flippantly, looking at me. Then Alana continued, I'm a big fan of Roland's bags. Since we're family, I'll get some products for free, right? Alana looked at me with hopeful eyes. I was so appalled that I couldn't say anything. Mom, that's too convenient, Nicholas said, frowning and sternly admonishing her. Even for Alana, that comment was too far beyond the pale. But Alana, seemingly not understanding, said, Why not? There must be plenty of stock, right? It wouldn't hurt to give away a few. Getting into a worse mood. Kevin and Raina looked at Alana with dismay. I told Alana, Our products are not free to give away. After all, you are strangers to us. Alana looked frustrated at my words. Krista and our Nicholas are getting married, right? So we are family. A family should provide financial support. You're the president after all. Alana said this with a straight face. After all the disdainful poor-calling, this was her attitude. She clearly had no remorse. Nicholas finally lost his patience with Alana's attitude. Mom, you changed your attitude just because you found out Krista's mom is the president? Aren't you ashamed? Nicholas, his face red, reproached Alana. But Alana, unfazed, laughed it off. It doesn't matter. A president must have more money than they know what to do with, right? Share a little with us. I quietly told Alana. Even if Krista and Nicholas get married, I have no intention of forming any ties with you. Alana, surprised, tried to cozy up to me. Don't say that. Once Nicholas gets married, we'll be family anyway, so giving away a bag or two. Alana was infuriating. As I was about to retort, Nicholas stepped between Alana and me. Nicholas. When I asked, Nicholas looked troubled. I knew Sonia was the president. And I kept silent, knowing my parents would bother Sonia if they found out. Kevin looked regretful at Nicholas's confession. You knew? If you had told me, I would have. If you had known, you'd act just like Mom, right? Nicholas looked at Kevin with a cold gaze. How dare you speak to your parents like that? Keep this up, and you're disowned. Kevin shouted at Nicholas. Krista was puzzled by their exchange. Nicholas sighed and declared, I'm fine with being disowned. I'll sever ties with you all. Why would you say such a thing? After all we've done to raise you. Alana, shaken, spoke to Nicholas. Kevin and Raina, stunned, stared at Nicholas. They hadn't expected him to say he'd cut ties. I want to cherish Krista going forward. I don't need a family that disregards Krista and Sonia. Nicholas! Alana collapsed in tears. Kevin and Raina stood there, dumbfounded. Being disowned by their beloved son must be incredibly hard. But that's solely the responsibility of Alana and the rest of the in-laws. Live with your regrets. I'm sure you'll struggle in the future, I said, smiling lightly. Then Krista joined in with my statement. We won't even tell you if we have children. She said this directly to her in-laws. Not being able to see the grandchild. Please, spare us that. Alana cried out in agony. Amidst this, Nicholas murmured, We're done being a family. At his words, Kevin and Raina tried to cling to us with faces about to cry. Ignoring such in-laws, Krista, Nicholas, and I left the restaurant. Afterward, I heard Kevin and Raina were fired from the company. The day after the incident at the restaurant, I told the president of Globecrafts that I wanted to cancel the collaboration. The president tried to persuade me several times, but I refused. I cannot collaborate with a company that harbors individuals capable of such disdain. While I sympathized with the president's desire to save his company, I couldn't support a company that employed Kevin and his ilk. I explained the situation to the president. Then the president became furious. Apparently, the president has a daughter about Krista's age and couldn't forgive Kevin and Raina's actions. The collaboration with me was crucial for Globecrafts. Kevin and Raina had ruined such an important collaboration. It's understandable that the president couldn't forgive them. Kevin was already of age, and Raina was employed part-time through Kevin's connections. After being fired from Globecrafts, finding a new job would be very tough for them. And Alana was a housewife. She had already been cut off by Nicholas, their only breadwinner. Once, the in-laws came directly to our company to negotiate. Please collaborate with Globecrafts. If you do, the president will rehire me. Even if not a collaboration, provide financial support. Our family is suffering, you know? Families help each other out. They both pleaded desperately. After treating people like poor people and now suddenly claiming family, it's laughable. I made it clear. Neither collaboration nor financial support is possible. Nicholas has also severed ties with you, hasn't he? Please leave now. But the in-laws wouldn't leave. But, trying somehow to cling to me, I firmly told the in-laws again. Never appear in front of me again. If I see you again, I'll call the police. Perhaps because I mentioned the police, Kevin said. Please, not the police. We won't come again. And left with Alana. The in-laws' clothes were dirty. They probably weren't living well. They who had once scorned others as poor. It's purely their own fault. Apparently, Raina has since lived almost entirely shut in. Struggling to find a job and unlikely to marry. Despairing about the future, Raina barely leaves her room. Her future seems to hold nothing but despair. 3 years have passed since then. Now, Krista, Nicholas, and I live together. Ideally, as newlyweds, Krista and Nicholas should live alone. But Nicholas said, I think it's safer for Krista if she's with you in case of anything. And they decided to live with me. Nicholas, busy with work, often helps with household chores alongside Krista. I'm truly grateful. And a significant change has occurred for the three of us. One day, Krista approached me with a serious look. Mom. Worried something might have happened to Krista, I became anxious. Then, in the next moment, she smiled. It looks like I'm going to be a mom. Krista joyfully stroked her belly. That's wonderful, Krista. Congratulations. Delighted, I hugged Krista. Nicholas smiled happily beside Krista and me. I'm sure various things will happen from now on. But if it's us, we can surely overcome them. I'm also looking forward to meeting the new grandchild. Imagining our happy future, a natural smile spread across my face. Being broke and useless is grounds for divorce. So said Matthew as he left the divorce papers on the table and walked out. I was left staring at those papers, dumbfounded, on my hospital bed. I had my suspicions for a while. But, to think he was actually cheating. And he's leaving me because I'm useless and can't earn money while hospitalized and because Alyson's pregnant? Mom? Startled, I looked up to find my precious son Harlan and my dad standing there. My dad looked at what I was holding and frowned. What are you going to do? There's only one thing to do. With some persuasion, I managed an early discharge and headed to the bank where Matthew works. My dad, who drove me there, cheered me on. You can do it. Then he dropped me off in front of the bank and drove away. As I entered the bank, Matthew, noticing me, frowned. Coincidentally, there were no other customers in front of Matthew. I approached him directly. I'm closing all the company accounts. What? Let's show him whose daughter he's angered. While Matthew turned pale, I couldn't help but smirk. I am Sabrina. A 32-year-old corporate executive and mother of one. I have a 7-year-old son named Harlan and my husband's name is Matthew. Matthew and I met at a party thrown by mutual friends during our college days. Back then, we had no interest in each other and merely exchanged contact information. Hey, weren't you at that party? Sabrina, right? Oh, Matthew? The following year, by coincidence, I used the bank where he worked and we reconnected. That led to us keeping in touch regularly and eventually started dating. After I got pregnant with Harlan, we got married. Matthew was known for his serious and meticulous work, which made my friends envy that I had him as my husband. I, too, was happy to have married him. Mom, why does this become this? Hold on a sec. I don't know that much myself, so I'll look into it. Okay. Harlan, perhaps inheriting traits from Matthew, is studious and curious. He's always asking questions, which keeps me on my toes with my own studies. What's this? Why? Surprisingly, Harlan's admiration is not for Matthew but for my dad. My mother passed away from illness, and my dad, despite his busy work life, raised me as a single parent. I'm sorry, but it's hard to get along with your dad. Well, it can't be helped, but don't say that to him. He's quite sensitive about it. No way, I could. My dad is a kind man but looks intimidating and somewhat scary. Matthew is also not comfortable around him due to his appearance. My dad, aware of this, has always tried not to interfere too much. Thus, our life was peaceful at the beginning, a life that seemed full of promise. But that changed drastically after we got married. Hey! Where did you put my mobile phone? Don't say it like I'm responsible for it. Isn't it still on the charger? Right after waking up, Matthew would ask grumpily. Indeed, his mobile phone was where he left it charging the night before. No apologies or thanks from him, just a click of his tongue, which irritated me. Matthew changed after we got married. And whenever he had the chance, he would say this. I'm an elite banker. Thanks to me, you're living a comfortable life. Yet Matthew doesn't contribute financially at home. He spends his entire salary on himself, yet acts as if he's supporting the household. In reality, I'm the one supporting our family. I pay for all the utilities and groceries. Hey! What's with these new clothes? They're for Harlan. He's outgrown his old ones. Don't spend my money on luxuries. I'm paying with my own salary. I don't even have access to your account. Yet, if I take Harlan out for a meal or buy new clothes, he immediately complains. He seems to dislike any form of luxury, no matter how small. On the other hand, My dad is the type of person who's willing to spend money for our sake. The apartment you're in now is too small, right? That's why I bought the condo you and Matthew wanted to live in. And it's not far from my place, so I could be close with you guys. He said, laughing, and gave us the top floor as a gift. And to be there for us in times of need, he lives on a different floor in the same building. Mom, can I go to Grandpa's? Of course, but just because it's the same building doesn't mean you can stay out late. Make sure you come back before it gets dark. Okay. It might be natural for Harlan to be closer to his grandfather than his father, Matthew. Whenever he has the chance, Harlan goes to see my dad. Where's Harlan? At Dad's place. Is that so? Matthew never complains about my dad to him directly. And it seems he's careful not to say too much around Harlan, fearing he might tell my dad. It's just me he's bold with. Certainly, I keep quiet not to trouble my dad. Well, if it's just complaints, I can ignore them. That's how lightly I thought of it as. And so unlike my dad, Matthew doesn't participate in childcare at all. I've been called out by Alyson, so I'm heading out. What? Again? And it's Matthew's childhood friend Alyson who's stealing away his time from childcare. I dislike her, more than just being uncomfortable around her. Matthew and I are like siblings. So please don't misunderstand. Every time she meets me, she would say something like that. Yet, she always tries to assert her dominance. Matthew used to be. As if she knows Matthew better than I do, which is just annoying. Valeria, Matthew's mother-in-law, also dotes on Alyson, which complicates things further. Why did Matthew choose such a woman instead of Alyson? He should have married Alyson. When called to my in-laws, Valeria made sure to say such things loud enough for me to hear. John, my father-in-law, always scolds her for it, but she doesn't seem to care. Alyson claims to be a natural airhead. I'm just a natural airhead, that's why I rely on Matthew so much. I don't mean to make Sabrina uncomfortable. This might be okay if she were younger. But she's 28, not exactly young. It's time she acted her age. The reason she and Matthew didn't end up together is because of John. I don't want such a woman even as an in-law. If it really comes down to it, I'll divorce you. Alyson can hardly be called as a good person. She's notorious for playing around with men and doesn't work either. Whatever she wants, she gets Matthew to buy for her. John despises Alyson and strongly opposed their relationship. I could never understand why Valeria adores Alyson so much. I'm sorry for my wife's behavior. It's not something you should apologize for, John. Matthew too. To not defend his wife from such remarks, and instead, being friendly with such a woman. True to John's words, no matter what Valeria says about me, Matthew never defends me. Sometimes, he even laughs. Why do you say those things, Grandma? If Mom and Dad hadn't met, I wouldn't be born. Does that mean I'm an unwanted child to you, Grandma? No, that's not true at all. Harlan always stands up for me in place of Matthew. Harlan may not understand how children are made, but he knows they can't be born without both parents. Valeria adores her brilliant grandson, so she refrains from making such remarks in front of Harlan. In that aspect, Valeria and Matthew are very alike, making it seem they really are related. I have plans to drink with Alyson tonight, so I'll be home late. Oh, really? Gradually, I started to wonder if Matthew was necessary for us at all. And I began preparing for divorce. Harlan seemed to sense something too. If there's anything I can help with, just let me know, he said, showing concern for me. Then, I was summoned by Valeria. I really didn't want to go, but she kept calling persistently enough that it would affect my work if I didn't show up. John is away on business, so there's no one to carry heavy things. Can you buy some rice? Apparently, John was on a business trip. I wanted to tell her to just order it online, but saying that would clearly lead to an argument. After being tasked with carrying heavy items after work, I was exhausted. As I was heading back to the condo in a daze, my body was thrown by a car. It seems a car that ran a red light hit me. The driver who hit you fled the scene, and we're currently investigating. I was informed while lying in a hospital bed. For now, I left Harlan in my father's care and decided to stay in the hospital for a while. I broke my arm, so I couldn't work properly in this state. When I was being worried about such things, my dad scolded me. First, worry about your own health. Harlan, my father, and John, who came back in a hurry after hearing about the accident, visited me frequently, but Matthew and Valeria did not visit me at all. Well, that was within my expectations. Coming in. What? So, I was surprised when Matthew showed up in my hospital room. Sign this. Matthew presented me with divorce papers. Already signed by him, with Valeria's name as a witness. With that arm, you won't be able to work. Now that you can't make money, you're useless to me. What is that supposed to mean? And besides, Alyson is pregnant with my child. My thoughts froze at those words. Alyson is pregnant with Matthew's child. I'm going to marry Alyson. So just sign this quickly. Saying that, Matthew turned his back on me. As if I was of no further use to him. Being broke and useless is grounds for divorce. Matthew said as he left the divorce papers on the table and walked out. I was left staring at those papers, dumbfounded, on my hospital bed. I had my suspicions for a while. But, to think he was actually cheating. And he's leaving me because I'm useless and can't earn money while hospitalized and because Alyson's pregnant? Mom? Startled, I looked up to find my precious son Harlan and my dad standing there. My dad looked at what I was holding and frowned. What are you going to do? There's only one thing to do. I answered while looking straight at my dad. My dad nodded in agreement. Well then, let's fight back. With some persuasion, I managed an early discharge and headed to the bank where Matthew works. My dad, who drove me there, cheered me on. You can do it. Then he dropped me off in front of the bank and drove away. As I entered the bank, Matthew, noticing me, frowned. Coincidentally, there were no other customers in front of Matthew. I approached him directly. I'm closing all the company accounts. What? Matthew's expression clearly said, what are you talking about? Without taking a number, I stood directly at the counter, noticing a few annoyed glances from others. Oh, excuse me. Maybe you didn't understand without the company name. What are you? I'm Sabrina Gibney. I recently took over my father and became the CEO. The company is Gibney Corporation. What the? Gibney Corporation is an IT company my father founded, now employing 1,900 staffs. And is quite well known in this area and within the industry due to its rapid growth in one generation. That's why Matthew was so surprised. That's a lie, right? You're just trying to get back at me. If you think so, why don't you check? Matthew started checking something immediately at my words. While he was busy, I looked around. Having mentioned the company name, the surrounding people were now paying attention to us. Oh my God, what? No way. It seemed he had confirmed it. Matthew looked up at me hesitantly. You're really from that Gibney Corporation? Let's show him whose daughter he has angered. Contrary to Matthew's pale face, I smirked unpleasantly. That's right, so please proceed with the cancellation quickly. Wait, if you cancel all at once like this. By the way, my father is quite angry about this matter as well. Quickly pack your things and leave the apartment. What? Why should I be the one to leave? It seems Matthew had forgotten that the apartment was purchased by my father, and the ownership was in my father's name. Otherwise, he wouldn't have brought Alyson in while I was hospitalized and still be living there. Forgot? That apartment was bought by my father, the former president. You haven't contributed any money, let alone for living expenses. You've been spending everything on your childhood friend and mistress, Alyson. In fact, you've been living on my salary. Who do you think has been supporting your lifestyle? Well, about that. And now, because she's pregnant, you expect me to hand over the apartment to you and your mistress? How much more do you intend to insult me? I made sure to speak loudly enough for those around to hear. And of course, Matthew was flustered. After all, he's known for being serious. That he, of all people, wouldn't contribute financially at home and was cheating with a childhood friend. The looks we received from those around us turned cold. Is that true? What? The one who approached me was Ogden, the branch manager of this bank. He had been here for a while, listening to our conversation. I believe we need to have a detailed discussion. I am very sorry for the inconvenience caused by our bank employee. And with that, Ogden offered a deep apology. Following this, I was taken to the back to discuss further with Matthew, Ogden, and myself. There, I explained the situation to Ogden in detail. I am terribly sorry for the trouble our employee has caused. Ogden sighed deeply and apologized again. Next to him, Matthew sat looking displeased, and to that, Ogden forcibly grabbed his head to make him apologize. I understand your feelings, Sabrina. It's natural not to want to entrust your money to a bank that employs such people. If you're considering closing your account, we can arrange that. I am no longer his wife. If you accept one condition, I might reconsider closing the account. The two of them looked up hopefully at my words. It was a good deal for Ogden, but the worst possible condition for Matthew. If you fire Matthew here, I would like to continue my contract with this bank. What? Of course. We were actually planning to let him go. It seemed Ogden had already intended to do so. Matthew, initially confused, gradually turned red in the face. As he was about to say something. Excuse me, but Sabrina's father has arrived. Another bank employee approached us. I had asked Ogden to let him in, thwarting Matthew, who, frustrated, closed his mouth. Why do I have to be here? What? Mom? Sorry for making you wait. Dad entered, firmly holding Valeria's arm. Valeria, looking displeased, glared at me upon seeing me. This is your doing. What are you trying to accomplish? I'll never forgive you for treating your mother-in-law like this. Quiet! As Valeria began to shout, my dad fiercely scolded her. Giving an even more intimidating look, he managed to silence them. I know you've been harassing my daughter. Calling her for trivial tasks, making her carry heavy things. Despite this, instead of showing gratitude, you prefer to listen, and you made sure my daughter heard it. And Matthew, far from defending, laughed, and even Harlan had to step in to protect her. My dad's angry voice echoed through the bank. Matthew tried to intervene but remained silent under my dad's stern gaze. And I'm aware that Alyson is the one who hit Sabrina. That woman has already been arrested by the police. Could Alyson really have done such a thing? Why are you surprised? You're the mastermind. My dad scolded at her even more. Meanwhile, Matthew, seemingly unaware, froze in shock. What? You both are the worst. Sabrina, let's go. Yes. Prompted by my dad, we headed outside. Ogden followed, apologizing repeatedly. Thinking I might continue the contract with Ogden in charge, we heard Matthew and Valeria arguing loudly behind us. It seemed they were blaming each other. Their voices could be heard outside, and the customers and bank employees who were present whispered that what they had heard was true. Just as planned. Yes. They reacted just as we expected, which helped. Our plan had gone smoothly, and we left the bank laughing confidently. As a result, Matthew was indeed fired. Thanks to the police conducting a thorough investigation, Alyson received a prison sentence. As for Valeria, she was forced to divorce John after it was discovered she had instigated Alyson to run me over in an attempt to get rid of me. Valeria was also taken into custody by the police. Welcome back, Mom, Grandpa. I'm home. Thank you for looking after Harlan, John. No problem. Seems like you've settled everything at the bank. After cornering Matthew and his accomplices at the bank, I went to pick up Harlan, whom I had left with John. John had helped a lot this time too. He found evidence that Valeria was instigating a listen and discovered notes about their plan to eliminate me, which he handed over to the police. When I thanked him for everything, John said with a smile, "You did great." Since then, my days have become busier than ever. Being busy as a next-in-line president and a board member already, becoming president has added even more responsibility on me due to Matthew. And as for my dad, he started a new company. "I've always wanted to start a new company," he said, pushing the presidency onto me, eager to show Matthew up. Because of that, both my father and I became busy, so John has been looking after Harlan. Apparently, John's business trip was forced upon him because Valeria was having an affair with his boss. He took early retirement and moved into a vacant apartment in our building. I'm currently studying about remote work. Planning to eventually entrust him with work, I've sent someone knowledgeable his way. He seems very capable, so I'd like him to excel in my new company. It seems my dad and John got along very well after this incident, often visiting each other's apartments to drink and chat. On the other hand, Matthew, having been driven out, returned to his empty family home. Unable to find employment at any bank with rumors spread by my dad and I everywhere, he was left unemployable, forced to pay me compensation through debts. Now, spending his days tirelessly working part-time jobs, he came crying to us, but we collectively ignored him. Once rumored to be on the fast track to becoming a branch manager, he has fallen far. When I grow up, I want to be like Grandpa. Harlan has come to respect my dad even more after this incident. Seeing him as a hero for rescuing us from the malicious acts of Matthew and Valeria. Would you take over for Grandpa someday? Yes. Hearing Harlan's willingness to follow in his footsteps, my dad was overjoyed. Determined not to be outdone by my father, I resolved to work even harder. Eventually, both my company and my father's company settled down. Oh, welcome home, Mom. Welcome back, looks like you worked hard. When I come home exhausted, I find John had already prepared dinner for us. I helped today too. Really? That's great, Harlan. I'm looking forward to dinner. Praising Harlan's effort with a smile, my dad also returned home late. Then, the four of us sat around the dining table, chatting and eating dinner together. In stark contrast to us, Matthew and his accomplices were scattered. Matthew piled up debts upon debts, eventually becoming indebted to a loan shark. And I heard rumors he was put on a ship. Matthew's family home was sold to pay off his debts, and Valeria, now without a place to go, was spotted living under a bridge by an acquaintance. By the way, I received an apology letter from Alyssan's parents. They're good people, I hope you'll read it. If you say so, John. According to the letter from Alyssan's parents, she gave birth in prison. They took the child in, and after Alyssan's release, they moved away to ensure she wouldn't rely on them. The letter contained deep apologies to me. Alyssan's parents seem like very good people. I sincerely hope the child grows up to resemble their grandparents rather than their parents. Nonetheless, Alyssan too has lost a place to return to. I hope she reflects on her sins in her solitude. Time passed by and it had been 10 years since the divorce. We've grown without being troubled by Matthew. Did I even have a dad? Apparently, he vaguely remembers Matthew's existence but considers irrelevant to his life. And I too have completely forgotten about his existence. I've decided to take over Grandpa's company after all. If that's what you've decided, I won't object. Harlan chose to inherit my dad's company, which was originally a company making toys. Starting as an ordinary employee, Harlan is valued for his constant flow of ideas. Maybe it's time to leave the company in Harlan's hands. My dad would say so in a laugh. Once he hands over the company to Harlan, he plans to live a quiet life in the countryside. I'm also finding a successor and teaching them my job earnestly. Once they've grown enough, I too might consider early retirement and start a new path. With that thought of future in mind, I will continue to work as the CEO. My name is Luna. I was a 28-year-old who worked in a flower shop located in an office building, creating flower arrangements. My husband, Oliver, was 2 years older than me, and worked as a hairstylist in the same building on the second floor. He was not exactly a celebrity stylist, but he was quite popular. We were celebrating our 3rd year of marriage that year. Apart from the fact that we had been unable to have children, I thought we were doing well as a happy couple. But it seemed I was the only one who thought that way. How did we first meet? Oliver used to frequently buy flowers for his salon from the flower shop on the first floor. Initially wary of Oliver, who was skilled in conversation due to his job, I gradually found it natural to have him by my side. How long was it after we started dating? Oliver invited me to dinner at his parents' house, saying he wanted to introduce me to his family. There, Oliver's brother and his fiancée were also present. I had heard about Oliver's struggles being compared to his excellent younger brother, but his brother was unpretentious and amiable, easy to talk to. Handsome, good-natured, and dependable, his brother had it all. Can't blame the parents for comparing, really. His fiancée, too, was beautiful and seemed quite talented. A stunningly attractive couple. Sitting opposite them, I couldn't help but wonder if I would be compared to his brother's bride-to-be if I married Oliver. During the lively conversation over dinner, "Have you guys decided on a date for the wedding ceremony?" Oliver asked his brother. Then, "We're about to decide. We'd love some suggestions for good venues," the brother and his fiancée replied. Oliver's brother, a promising banker, and his fiancée, working at a securities firm, were both solid professionals. Thinking they would prefer something luxurious, considering they'd invite bosses and work colleagues, I suggested some famous venues where my corporate friends had their weddings. The fiancée searched the venues on her mobile phone, happily engrossed in a page showing a venue with a garden chapel. Then Oliver chimed in. "Hey, why don't we do the wedding ceremony together? How about a restaurant wedding?" And so he had proposed with a casual tone. It was something I had hoped would happen eventually, but I was shocked by his sudden suggestion, especially since he hadn't yet formally met my parents. Then, from somewhere, I heard a distinct sking noise. I couldn't believe it, but it seemed like the sound came from my BIL's fiancée. She was making an incredibly dissatisfied face and muttering under her breath. BIL's girlfriend might be okay with such a ceremony, but I. Then Lucas, Oliver's brother, exclaimed, "Bro, that's a great idea! These kinds of stylish ceremonies are becoming more popular." He seemed genuinely excited about Oliver's suggestion. Being more displeased, the fiancée glared at me more, as if to stop Oliver from saying whatever he wanted. But she was glaring at the wrong person. If she had a problem, I wished she would speak up to the enthusiastic brothers instead. Subsequently, driven by the brothers' excitement, we ended up planning a restaurant wedding, and everything progressed quickly. In a flurry, we managed to greet my parents, and the 4 of us dined out to choose a venue. As days passed, the once disgruntled fiancée warmed up to Oliver, who was now BIL, and they got along so well that one would think they were the couple getting married. However, her attitude towards me remained unchanged. And so, 6 months later, the 2 couples held their restaurant weddings. After the marriage, I switched from full-time to part-time at work, focusing more on household chores. I left for work after sending Oliver off, returned home earlier to prepare dinner, and waited for Oliver's return. This became my routine. Sometimes, my BIL and his wife, both working full-time, relied on our dinner unexpectedly. It seemed cooking was too much of a hassle for them. Camila, my CL, came with just a token gift, evidently expecting me to cook, sparing herself the effort. At the dinner table, Camila oddly sat next to Oliver instead of her husband, treating me more like a convenient housekeeper. Honestly, their visits were far from welcome. Moreover, she indirectly criticized me, saying I looked plain or that my only talent was messing with flowers. I couldn't stand being demeaned in front of Oliver, but I hated confrontations, so I pretended not to mind Camila's words. Instead, after they left, why does she look down on people so much? It's terrible to imply someone's worthless if they don't work at an office. I vented to Oliver. She's a competent and successful woman. Maybe you're just hearing it that way, Luna. It sounds like you're envious. You shouldn't say things like that. But his response was always defensive of Camila. Oliver, proud of his brother's achievements, seemed unwilling to hear anything negative about his brother's wife. It felt like he was implying I was the problem, listing all of Camila's virtues instead. Recently, my daily life had changed a bit due to Lucas's sudden solo assignment. Camila, too, seems somewhat reluctant to come uninvited to our dinners alone. With fewer visits from her, I was free from her snide comments and had been able to spend my days more peacefully. But now, a different worry had surfaced. For some reason, Oliver had been coming home late at night, day after day, leaving me to have dinner and go to bed alone. It was really worrying that he had been returning home after midnight so frequently. I hoped he didn't fall ill. One morning, as Oliver hurriedly got ready for work. "You've been coming home late recently. Are you okay? I'm worried you might wear yourself out," I asked him. Oliver didn't even look at me. No need to worry. It's just a contest. I'm busy preparing for a hair contest," he stammered. I haven't heard anything about a hair contest. Usually, he'd make a big deal about entering a hair contest weeks in advance, but this time, nothing. Isn't that strange? Sensing his haste, I asked, "When is this contest? You didn't mention it before. Did you decide to enter suddenly?" Without turning face to me, he replied, "Yeah, that's right. I overlooked the invitation. I've been busy arranging for a cut model and stuff." He didn't even look at me. Come to think of it, when a contest was near, a really cute cut model used to come to the salon after hours. Is she coming this time too? Is it the same cut model you usually have? I asked nonchalantly. Oliver exaggeratedly replied, "Yeah, that's right. I've been keeping her late. Really, I feel so bad about it." His manner of speaking seemed exaggerated. What is this? This feels so forced. Doesn't his speech sound unnatural? Despite my feelings. Is that really okay? It's dangerous to keep a girl late every day, even if you're short on time. When I looked at Oliver, he seemed determined to avoid eye contact. Glancing at his watch, he said, Look at the time. I'm going to be late." Ignoring my words, he hurried out the door. Did he just run away? That reaction was so unnatural. Am I overthinking this? Could it be something with the cut model, an affair? No, that can't be it. The more I thought about it, the worse my thoughts got. After all, such things are unthinkable, aren't they? It's just my bad habit of overthinking. I need to stop that. It's just the late nights because of the hair contest preparations, that's all. Carrying these troubled thoughts, I got ready and headed to work. When I arrived at the shop, Mason, the manager of the salon where Oliver worked, was there picking out flowers for the salon. It was usually Oliver who picked the flowers, so it was unusual to see Mason here. Mason said he leaves the flower selection to Oliver because he doesn't know much about them. Could it be that Oliver asked Mason to pick the flowers to avoid further questions about this morning's conversation? I decided to probe a little. "Oliver is participating in a hair contest with you, right? Good luck with that," I said to Mason. But Mason looked confused. "Which hair contest? We don't have any such plans," he asked. I also asked about the cut model, but he said they hadn't requested any recently. Apparently, the model was Mason's cousin, who was currently studying abroad. As for the late nights, Mason said that Oliver had been leaving the salon at the regular closing time, so there was no way he had to come home after midnight. It seemed like everything Oliver told me was a lie. So, what had Oliver been doing every night, and with whom? While my suspicion about the cut model was cleared, I still felt uneasy. Stunned and trying to grasp the situation. Should I subtly ask him about it? Mason offered. I thought about accepting Mason's offer, but would Oliver give him a straight answer? I felt like Oliver, being so good at talking, would give vague responses. It seemed more likely that something was going on. I didn't want to give Oliver any chance to concoct an excuse. I had to keep it a secret that I was aware of his lies and probing into the matter. I told Mason that I would handle it myself for now, and asked him to keep our conversation secret, saying I would seek his advice if needed. That night, I decided to wait for Oliver and ask him as if I was oblivious to everything. I doubted he would tell me the truth anyway. Around midnight, Oliver finally came home. While claiming to have been working late, he looked slightly startled when he saw me waiting up. I'm home. I'm exhausted. Finally got the new haircut done, he said, unaware that I knew everything. I wondered what kind of amazing haircut he completed. I asked Oliver, who was trying to mask his nervousness. You must be worn out. Hey, do you mind if I ask something? As I spoke quietly. What's up? What do you want to know? His voice trembled. Are you really working? Are you really preparing for a hair contest? Oliver replied. Well, of course I am. What else would it be? His unease was apparent. He seemed intent on sticking to his lies. In that case. Oh? What about cheating? Yes or no? I asked directly, and his face changed completely. What? Of course I'm not. Oliver began to get defensive. Even the usually eloquent Oliver had no room for jokes. Despite his panic, he tried to weave an escape with desperate excuses. You know, Mason told me. The hair contest is a lie, right? Wouldn't it be better to just come clean? What are you really doing? I cornered him with no escape. Apparently, he had no excuses left and, trembling with clenched fists. Fine. I'll say it. It's an affair. I've fallen in love with someone else. He blurted out. His confession came off as resigned and frustrated. He even started to get angry, as if it was some sort of injustice. I tried to get him to confess who the other person was, but he refused to say, probably because it was someone he shouldn't be involved with. No matter how much I pressed, my anger only grew. Then, I'll hire a detective or whatever it takes to find out. Just be ready. It's Camila. Hearing my words, he went pale and confessed in a defeated tone. Camila? Isn't she Lucas's wife? I was shocked, and he retorted. Yes, Camila. She's pregnant with my child. You haven't had a child with me, but you did with someone else, and that someone is your brother's wife? That's despicable. As I hurled accusations at Oliver, he retorted with unreasonable words. It's your fault for being infertile. Anyway, I'm going to take responsibility and divorce you. His words were infuriatingly unfair. That explained why he always sided with his Sael over me. Are you kidding? Do you even realize what you're saying? Does Lucas know? To have been treated this way by him, I couldn't help but be angry. It doesn't matter. Camila and I won't be separated. She's going to divorce Lucas and be with me. No one can stop us. Oliver declared defiantly. If you don't like it, then let's get a divorce right now. Disgusted by his words, I retorted. Don't like it? That's an understatement. I'll gladly divorce you. I decided then and there to cut ties with this hopeless man. The next day, I told everything to my parents, my in-laws, and Lucas, who was at his assignment location. Shocked and furious, they couldn't believe Oliver and Camila had an affair and were expecting a child. Despite their family's reactions, both were unapologetic and brazen. All this is Asael's fault, right? If she's upset about the affair or didn't notice it, it's her own fault. If Lucas wants to blame someone, he should blame Asael. Camila even had the audacity to put the blame on me. Their lack of remorse disgusted everyone. Lucas decided to divorce Camila, and both Oliver and Camila were disowned by our parents and Lucas. Later, when I reported the situation to Mason, the concerned salon manager, he was one of our recommended hairstylists. This could affect our salon's reputation. I need to think about what to do with Oliver, he said while crossing his arms. 3 months later, after Camila's remarriage prohibition period ended, she and Oliver got married. Yet, for some reason, I was getting calls from Oliver on my mobile phone. I was at work, and as far as I was concerned, he was a person from my past. I had nothing to say to him, yet he kept calling persistently if I ignored him. Oliver, still somehow keeping his job under Mason's management and working in the beauty salon on the second floor, was someone I don't want showing up at the flower shop. Reluctantly, I answered the call. "Hey, can you help me out here?" His voice was weak and pitiful, a far cry from his earlier bravado. "Why should I? I have no obligation to help you. Can you stop bothering me during work?" As I was about to hang up. "Don't be so cold. Can I come over to talk?" Oliver appeared to really want to talk. Not wanting him to actually come, I decided to listen. It turned out he was in quite a laughable predicament. According to Oliver, on the day they registered their marriage, Camila received a demand for alimony in a divorce lawsuit via a formal notice. "What's this about?" he questioned, and it turned out Camila had been having an affair with her boss, and his wife found out, demanding $50,000 in alimony. Moreover, she was pregnant, and it was unclear whether the child was Oliver's or her boss's. He might end up raising a child that isn't his. I have no confidence in raising a child that might not be mine. Tell me how to get a divorce. His SOS to me was the last thing I needed. Just say what you told me, was all the advice I gave. That's it. That was the last call I ever received from Oliver. Nevertheless, both my former sister-in-law and ex-husband were such despicable people. They were both broke after paying us alimony in the divorce suits. Oliver was likely to be fired by Mason now, and with Camila's affair scandal at work, she would probably be fired too, burdened with a hefty debt of $50,000 for alimony. What would they do now? Face bankruptcy? It seemed like a miserable life awaits them, socially and personally obliterated. As for me, I remarried a man who supplies flowers to my shop and am expecting a long-awaited child. I live happily, surrounded by beautiful flowers, a kind and honest husband, and looking forward to holding my lovely child. Despite being called plain, living true to myself is best. I've learned my lesson to stay away from smooth talkers and those who look down on others. Living with a sick person? That's too depressing, no way. Just leave that dying Emil alone. Matthew threw those cold words at me when I expressed my desire to live with my mom, who was in the last stage of breast cancer. I wonder if she couldn't eat good food because she was poor. That's so sad. My Emil, who always disliked my mom, seemed almost pleased upon hearing about my mom's illness. I was shocked. Don't they have a heart? Years later, Emil was diagnosed with a terminal cancer as well. Matthew decided we should live with Emil without asking me, so to get back at him, I chose to leave the house. My name is Alicia, I'm 32. I married Matthew, a former colleague from work, 5 years ago. I wanted to keep working, but Matthew wanted me to focus on housekeeping, so I reluctantly became a housewife. We lived just the two of us, but male Samantha, who lived nearby, often came over. Samantha, who was born and raised in a wealthy family, had a different set of values, but we got along reasonably well. The only concern was the bad relationship between my mom, Natalie, and Samantha. My mom grew up in a fatherless household and was forced to live in poverty. Maybe that's why she took good care of things and didn't indulge in luxuries. However, Samantha was extravagant and bragged about being wealthy more than necessary. The pre-wedding family meeting took place in a hotel near the in-laws' house. The meal went smoothly, But when I went to the restroom, I found Samantha and Mom arguing. "Where did you buy those clothes? They look so poor." Well, I hate the idea of being related to someone who dresses so strangely. Why is Matthew marrying someone from such a weird family? It's not about appearance. Judging people by such things isn't right. Mom wasn't fazed and countered firmly, which seemed to annoy Samantha, who glared at her fiercely. They met again at the wedding but didn't talk at all, and Mom and Samantha haven't met since. Samantha, who lived alone, a 10-minute walk away, was living off the inheritance from her husband, who was a doctor. Perhaps because she had time on her hands living alone, she often visited our house. Before Matthew went to work, he told me to keep the next Sunday free. Why? I was planning to visit Mom on Sunday. Mom's coming over to visit. Can't you handle it alone? If you're my wife, you should at least offer Mom some coffee. But I want to visit my mom sometimes too. We can do that some other time. It's not too far to my parents' home. Just about a 15-minute drive. But because Samantha came over almost every week, I hadn't seen my mom for nearly 3 months. We kept in touch by phone and text, but I missed seeing her in person from time to time. Since Dad passed away, Mom had been working part-time and could only really relax on Sundays. But with Samantha visiting almost every week, it had been hard to find the time to go home. I was just thinking that this week, I should visit my parents' home and talk to Mom. That's when I got a call from an unknown number on my mobile phone. "It's XX Hospital. Your mom collapsed at work and was brought here." I panicked at the sudden news. I rushed out of the house and headed to the hospital, where I found my mom lying down. The doctor invited me into the examination room to talk. "Your mom has breast cancer." "Breast cancer? Can it be cured?" "Unfortunately, the cancer has spread. It's unlikely to be completely cured." How sad. I couldn't help but tear up at the doctor's words. I never imagined my mom could have cancer. I still haven't been able to repay her for everything. What am I going to do now? I was filled with anxiety. The treatment will be tough and the chances of a complete recovery are slim. We recommend palliative care to make her as comfortable as possible. The doctor's kind words helped me regain some composure, and I returned to the ward. Mom looked much thinner than the last time I saw her. I couldn't help but think that if I had visited Mom sooner, I might have noticed earlier. But it's too late for regrets. I told Mom I wanted to live with her and take care of her at home. She smiled happily at my decision. So, I decided to discuss it with Matthew as soon as I got home. By the time I finished all the hospital procedures, it was already evening. When I got home, Samantha and Matthew were there. Matthew had asked Samantha to prepare dinner because he knew I'd be home late. "How's Natalie?" "She has breast cancer. It seems pretty bad, and the treatment doesn't look promising," I told Matthew, fighting back tears. Matthew looked as sad as if it was about his own family and comforted me by stroking my back. Grateful for Matthew's kindness, I told him I wanted to live with my mom. But his response was unexpected. "That's a problem. It's depressing to come home to a bedridden sick person. Living with MIL and having to be considerate all the time? Absolutely not. But my time with Mom is running short. It's only right to spend it together." I disagree. "Can you really take care of Natalie and handle all the housework?" "Exactly. We need the housework done properly, and you don't even know anything about caregiving." "I won't neglect the housework, and I'll learn about caregiving. It's not like she's bedridden right away. Just leave dying Natalie alone. It's such a hassle." "Right. It's really silly how desperate you are." They laughed. I could only stare at them in disbelief. Are these people even humans? How can they suggest leaving Mom alone when she is about to pass away? Maybe she couldn't afford nutritious food because she was poor. But at least it's not a contagious disease," Samantha said with a laugh. I glared at her, burning with anger. Then, Samantha looked at me and smirked. What's with that look? If you don't like it, just leave. Not sure if Natalie, a part-time worker with a meager salary, and you, a housewife with no income, can survive even a week, though. That's right. I'm supporting you. You should listen to me. I couldn't respond. Matthew paid for all our living expenses. My savings were only from before we got married. There was no way the two of us could live on that. So, I decided to visit my parents' home during the day and take care of Mom. It's only a 15-minute drive, not too far to commute. At first, balancing housework and caregiving was manageable, but gradually, as her illness progressed, Mom's muscles weakened and she could hardly walk. It was harder than I imagined. Still, I studied caregiving methods diligently and tried my best to repay Mom. I took care of her and did the housework without a break, getting more and more tired. Then one day, I saw unfamiliar shoes at my parents' home. When I went to Mom's bedroom, I found her sister, Hannah. What happened? Natalie asked me to come and help Alicia. I'm sorry for the trouble. I'd be okay with staying at a facility, but I thought Alicia might not want that. Indeed, I wanted her to spend as much time as possible at home. Understanding that, Mom had asked Hannah for help. I'm sorry. It's okay. I want to help too. From that day, Hannah started coming to the house every other day to help. Having Hannah's help made things much easier. I had more time to rest and felt a little more at ease, but cruelly, the disease kept ravaging Mom's body. She caught a severe cold, developed pneumonia, and was admitted to the hospital. A week after her admission, I got a call from the hospital saying Mom was critical. When I arrived at the hospital, it was just when Mom's heart stopped. As the beeping of the machines echoed, I broke down. The tears didn't stop at the farewell too soon with Mom. I was so emotionally shattered that I could hardly manage my daily life. If it weren't for Hannah, I don't think I could have handled the funeral preparations or the inheritance procedures. Matthew and Samantha didn't offer help until the end, nor did they seem to care. Honestly, I was thinking of divorcing Matthew. But my lack of financial independence was a barrier. So, I started working in caregiving. I thought about saving up quickly to get a divorce, but then something happened that made it impossible. I was pregnant. It was a long-awaited child, and both Matthew and Samantha were overjoyed. For me too, it was a much-desired child. Though it was nice to see Matthew and Samantha happy about it. Being pregnant meant I couldn't continue working. A few months later, my son Sean was born safely. Seeing newborn Sean made me feel I had to protect him no matter what. With few childcare centers accepting infants, and the demands of childcare and housework, I reluctantly resigned from my job. I lost my chance to divorce, and about 5 years passed. I started working in caregiving again when Sean began attending preschool. I worked only while Sean was at preschool, juggling housework and childcare at home. One day, Matthew came home early on his day off with a somber look. It was much earlier than his usual return time. Usually, he'd spend his days off golfing with friends or going to the movies, not returning until the evening. But today, it was only 3 p.m. Dad, you're home early. Sean greeted him happily, but Matthew didn't respond. We need to have a serious talk, so Sean, please go to your room. After taking Sean to his room, I sat down on the sofa. What's wrong? You look upset. Actually, I got a call from Mom. She has a cancer. What? The same breast cancer as Natalie. And there's no treatment for Mom either. I see. Thinking of Mom, my heart ached. The shock of her passing still hadn't healed, and my heart was still wounded. But my time to grieve was short. Mom said she wants to spend time with us. So, we're going to live together. What? She's planning to move in the week after next. Wait. What's wrong? Matthew, you're so against me living with my mom. That was years ago, and that was Alicia's mom. This time it's my mom. It's different. How is it different? I'm absolutely against it. What are you talking about? Can't you, as a wife, take care of your MIL? You married me. It's only natural to treat my mom the same as your mom. Matthew countered with an argument that made no sense. I'm sorry, but I won't be taking care of Samantha. Given how you've spent your days off playing around, never bothering with childcare or housework, you're probably just going to dump the caregiving on me, aren't you? That's not true. But Alicia, you work in caregiving, right? So it makes sense for you to do it. What are you talking about? I'm not going to take care of Samantha without getting paid. How heartless can you be? Look, living together is already decided. I'm renting an electric bed, so make space for it. With that, Matthew left the house. I was left reeling by Matthew's selfishness. I hadn't forgotten the hurtful things Samantha and Matthew said to me when I wanted to live with my mom. I didn't want to take on the burden of caregiving for such unkind people. I was determined to divorce. After that, Matthew was often late coming home, claiming he was busy with hospital visits and arrangements. He often returned after Sean and I had gone to bed. In Matthew's absence, I began preparing for divorce. The one who helped me with the divorce preparations was Hannah. Hannah had been through a divorce herself, so I consulted her about what should be done. She not only shared her own experiences, but also provided useful information I hadn't even thought of. However, one of my biggest concerns was finding a new home. Even renting an apartment was difficult because I couldn't afford places with high rent. I struggled to find a place suitable for Sean and me, and not too far from my workplace. That's when Hannah offered help. If you're struggling with rent, I can introduce you to a good property. A friend of mine owns an apartment, and I believe one room is vacant. She's willing to rent it cheaply to have it occupied, and it's not too far from your workplace. Grateful for Hannah's offer, I immediately asked her to introduce me to the property. It was conveniently located, not far from Sean's preschool and my workplace, so I signed the contract right away. But there was another thing that worried me. It was about Sean. I felt it was unfair to suddenly drag him into the situation and separate him from his dad. I was considering giving up on the divorce if Sean was against it. However, Sean spoke to me with kind words. Mom, are you okay? Are you in pain? No, I'm not in pain. Just thinking. Would you be sad if you couldn't live with Dad anymore? I'd be a little sad, but I hate seeing you sad more. I was taken aback by Sean's words and looked into his eyes. Sean continued with a slightly sad face. Because Mom, you look a little sad when you're with Dad. I prefer it when you smile. I had heard that children are very observant, but I was surprised to see how much Sean noticed about me. I thought he was still just a child, but he seemed to sense that things weren't going well with Matthew. And still, Sean chose me. With Sean's understanding, I decided to take action. The day came for Samantha to move in. Matthew had left a message saying to make space for the electric bed and other items. He went to the in-laws' house to bring Samantha's belongings. Seizing the moment, I left the divorce papers at the house and took Sean with me to our new apartment. I ignored Matthew's calls as Sean and I sorted through our belongings. The thought of starting a new life filled me with a sense of liberation. Life with just the two of us turned out to be more comfortable than I expected. By cutting costs and living frugally, my salary was sufficient to support us. In fact, I had used my free time after having my child to study caregiving and had obtained a certification, which resulted in a higher salary than before. Since Matthew never contributed to household chores or childcare, the amount of housework I had to do remained the same. Actually, it was easier without having to cook and do laundry for Matthew. However, in the midst of our comfortable life, I unexpectedly ran into Matthew at the supermarket. Alicia, what are you doing? You left the house without saying anything. Matthew approached me, shouting amidst the crowd. Stop it. There are so many people here. Damn it. Come home. We'll talk there. I honestly didn't want to return to that house. To face Samantha again. I didn't want to see her face at all. But to keep my current home a secret, I had no choice but to comply. As soon as I entered the house, Samantha began berating me. "Where have you been, Alicia?" "It doesn't matter where." "Of course it does. You should come back and take care of Mom." "No thanks." "Why not just leave dying people alone?" "What did you say? How could you say such a thing? Did you forget already? Isn't that what you told me? Why should I do anything for Samantha when you never lifted a finger?" Matthew and Samantha's faces turned red with anger and breathed heavily. "I don't mind if Matthew wants to care for Samantha. I just want a divorce." "Why divorce all of a sudden? You don't even have to do caregiving, just handle the household chores." "Are you tired of even that?" "No. It's not the chores I'm tired of. I'm tired of being Matthew's wife. I can't be with someone who cheats on me with a younger woman, saying he's busy with preparations while his mom is sick." "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" Samantha looked puzzled, and Matthew stuttered in denial. His panic made it seem like an admission, but he still tried to lie his way out. "Actually, when I talked to Hannah about divorcing Matthew because of his tyrannical attitude, she said she saw Matthew entering a young woman's house. So I did a little investigation and sure enough, he's been meeting a woman almost every day. A coworker, maybe? I have the photos." I had received photos of Matthew's infidelity from the investigation. When I showed them, Matthew's face turned pale. Samantha glared at Matthew. "Matthew, what are you doing when I'm going through such a hard time?" "No, it's not like that. I was thinking this would be the last time we meet. Making memories before I start caring for Mom. I won't meet her again." "Even if you don't meet her anymore, the fact that you cheated won't change. If you refuse to divorce, I'm not afraid to go to the court, but you won't stand a chance of winning. So, please sign the divorce papers quickly. And from now on, any discussions about the divorce should go through my lawyer." Matthew looked frustrated and then, as if he had an idea, he smirked maliciously. "You're working in caregiving now, right?" "Yes." "I bet you're not earning much. With your salary, you must be living a poor life in a cheap apartment." He probably thought he could intimidate me by highlighting my lack of financial resources. But I was no longer the person I used to be. Thankfully, I got a good deal on a cheap apartment and am living a slightly better life. Of course, I need to be frugal, but I'm not struggling so much that Sean has to go without. I won't be controlled by you forever." "Controlled?" "Yes. You wanted to keep me from earning money by dumping all the housework on me, making me think I couldn't live without you. But I can live without you." When I spoke my mind, Matthew's face twisted in frustration. "Fine, I'll divorce you. But don't come crying when you run out of money. Life will only get tougher when Sean starts advancing in school. Just wait, you'll suffer." Matthew signed the divorce papers on the spot. I took them and stood up. "Thank you. Now we're strangers. Good luck with Samantha's care. Oh, and about the compensation from the divorce trial, my lawyer will handle it." With those words, I left the house. It was half a year later. Not at the supermarket where I had previously met Matthew, but at a different one, I saw Matthew standing at the entrance. And when he saw me, he hurriedly approached. "I'm glad to find you. If you live around here, I thought you'd come here for sure." "What do you want?" "We're strangers now, so don't talk to me." "Wait. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Please come back." It seemed Matthew didn't know my apartment or workplace and had been waiting for me at local supermarkets, hoping to run into me. And then, Matthew fervently apologized. "What now?" "I was wrong. Mom can't even go to the toilet by herself anymore, and I can't manage caregiving after work. It's too much. I'm exhausted, making mistakes at work. I can't handle it all on my own." Matthew was likely struggling with housekeeping. He was wearing a dirty shirt. And his hair was unkempt and unbearable to look at. So you realized how hard caregiving is.
I really felt it. So, can you come back and help?
No.
But why?
It's too late for regrets now. It's all because of what you did, Matthew. Don't come near me again. If you follow me, I'll report it to the police.
Alicia, don't say that. Please.
Make sure you pay the child support and compensation from the divorce trial. Matthew was in tears. The same Matthew who always looked down on me. His pathetic state was just astonishing. The heartless words about my mom, the selfish behavior of constantly playing around without caring for the family, and to top it off, the betrayal of cheating, this was the result. There was no other way to put it but as a consequence of his own actions. Afterward, Matthew apparently pressured his affair partner into marriage, but was, of course, rejected. It seemed she reported him to their superiors, leading to a sexual harassment case, and he was transferred to another department. This news came from former colleagues at the company where we both worked before getting married. Having several acquaintances there, I naturally received updates. Balancing caregiving and work became too much for him, his performance dropped, and with the transfer, his salary significantly decreased. With the reduced income and obligations to pay the child support and compensation from the divorce, he's apparently in a situation where he can't afford a helper or caregiving services. He's desperately trying to provide care, but he's at his limit both mentally and physically, unable to focus at work, making frequent mistakes, and spiraling down. A former colleague mentioned that if the mistakes continue, he might even be fired. It's unfortunate, but it's no longer my concern. I'm living a peaceful life in the apartment Hannah introduced to me. Balancing housework and my job is challenging, but with Sean and Hannah's support, we're managing. It's a pity I couldn't show Sean to Mom, but I like to think she's watching over us as I do my best for Sean's sake. I'm Vivian, 27 years old, and a pregnant woman about to give birth soon. My husband Bobby is 3 years older than me, a bit selfish, but I've always relied on him as I'm indecisive. However, being pregnant made me realize that boyfriends and husbands are different, and so are husbands and fathers. As a boyfriend, I appreciated him taking the lead, but as a married couple, it felt different. He just wouldn't listen to others. Whenever I gave an opinion, he would negate it, insisting he was always right. And now, as I'm trying to change into a mom, he still hasn't quite become a husband. He seems to hold the reins in our relationship. His values are, frankly, quite outdated. Sure, some couples work well that way. I've heard that was how it used to be. Husbands would earn a lot, allowing wives to focus solely on housework and childcare. But his salary isn't something to brag about. In fact, I was earning more before my maternity leave. I kept quiet about it though, to avoid upsetting him. He spends as much as he has, so we still keep our savings separate. I've been saving bit by bit, so I can manage the expenses even during maternity leave, something he doesn't seem to grasp. He probably thinks he's supporting me with his income alone. Likely, it's the influence of his parents. His mother has always been a housewife, with his father as the sole earner. That's fine. Both of his parents respect each other. I got that impression when I met them. A wife supporting her husband, and a husband supporting his wife, made it work. In our case, Bobby seems to look down on me. I don't mind him emulating Fael, but I wish he'd learn how to treat his wife as well. When Emael, Wallace, gave birth, Fael supported her as best he could and was proactive in childcare. Even at our first meeting, they seemed like a great couple, the kind I wanted us to be. With my due date being around Christmas, I wonder whether we should go to the in-laws' house. Then, an incident occurred at the end of the year, just before giving birth. In the afternoon, Bobby called from work. Today's the last day of work before the holiday, so after I'm done, my colleagues will come over for drinks.
Wait a minute, my due date is soon, right? You can't predict when the baby will come, at least go out to drink somewhere else.
Faced with this unbelievable suggestion, I was at a loss for words.
What? Are you trying to annoy me? I've already told my colleagues. Don't embarrass me. You always said, don't bring anyone over at the last minute. I told you first thing in the morning. Mom said she gave birth to me 2 days after her due date, and my sister was born a week late. So, a due date is just a guideline. That varies from person to person. Sure, a due date is just a prediction, but we need to be cautious around that time.
That's exactly what Wallace said when I announced my pregnancy. But she also said, it would be so much easier if babies would just listen to us before they're born. Bobby, apparently not paying attention to that, continued after a click of his tongue.
So, I'll stay home when the due date comes. Don't use pregnancy as an excuse to tie me down. I didn't see your messages today, so clean the house by the time I get back. It was messy when I left this morning. Don't embarrass me, and prepare food and drinks, okay? Remember to keep your promises. Wait, I'm pregnant. I can't even clean up. Remember I asked you to do it yesterday? The mess was because you didn't clean up.
He seemed to recall and then got angry.
You're a housewife, right? You're being supported, so don't make me do housework. Just do it already.
Saying that, he hung up. The mess he was referring to was actually made by him yesterday. He had brought colleagues home just before returning once before. I did ask him to inform me in the morning, but I never expected him to do this, especially not so close to the due date. My belly weighs about 3 kilos now, putting pressure on my organs. You wouldn't understand unless you've been through it. I didn't understand until I got pregnant. My sister-in-law, who's already had a baby, keeps in touch frequently. I feel blessed to share these hardships with her. Wallace reminisces about the past and brings things I need, and Fael helps out too. The in-laws' house is really nice. The baby in my belly, perhaps worried about me, kicks me repeatedly. It felt like a sign not to comply with his demands. So, I called his office. The person who answered passed the call to him. Hello, Bobby? It's impossible today. My belly's been kicked so much, I just can't move.
What? Don't call for something like that. I'll drink at a colleague's place then. Don't call the office again. It's embarrassing, cut it out. At least clean up. If you don't, it's divorce, understand?
All I could hear was the cold electronic tone in my ear. I couldn't believe he was this terrible. Lately, he has been using divorce as a threat for everything. He thinks I'm afraid of divorce now that we have a baby. He uses it to make me anxious. According to him, it's discipline. The only reasons I haven't divorced him are the possibility of change after the baby's birth and the in-laws' presence. How can someone from such a good family turn out like this? Knowing Sael, it's definitely not the parents-in-law's upbringing. It must be his friend's influence. At our wedding, one of his friends said, "Keep your wife in check." After that, he started acting more arrogantly towards me. Since the wedding, he has been acting even more bossy towards me. Just then, the phone rang at the perfect time, and I answered it.
Hello, Vivian, how are you feeling?
Wallace, it's not my body, it's my mood that's terrible. Wallace sounded a bit panicked over the phone.
The due date is Christmas, right? You might feel like you have a lot to do, but prioritize your baby and yourself first.
Thank you. But the problem isn't that. I'm sorry to say, but I might end up divorcing. I don't want to part from you guys, but I've reached my limit with this incident. I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. Wallace sounded frantic on the other end.
What happened all of a sudden? Can you explain?
Bobby called earlier, saying he's bringing colleagues home tonight. He told me to clean up and buy drinks and prepare. If I can't do that, he said it's divorce. So, I guess there's no other choice but to divorce. I've been threatened like this for a while now. Even the usually cheerful Wallace was silent, listening.
I'm sorry I didn't notice. Bobby told me you were going to give birth near your parents' home.
What? I'm not at my parents', I'm at our house. I didn't understand why he would lie about that, but her response clarified it.
That's why I've been giving him money every day, as he said he couldn't eat properly. I should have taught him housework to reduce your burden. That's my responsibility too.
No, she did teach him. It's clear from how Sael is. He just chose to escape. Even Fael does the household himself. Really? I didn't know that. I'm sorry. I almost became an ungrateful wife without knowing the situation.
No, it's our fault too. If you're not at your parents', we're neglectful parents. We should have helped more. When he gets drunk, he won't get away with it. I'll give him a piece of my mind next time.
I was relieved to have a mother-in-law who would stand up for her son's wife like this. Thank you. I'm really happy I can rely on you, Wallace. You're like a real mom to me now. I lost my mother early, so her friendliness meant a lot to me.
I'm feeling okay for now, so I'll try to clean up. I'll order the drinks for delivery and take a break once it's done. Don't push yourself too hard. If anything happens, I'll come right away.
After I finished cleaning and was taking a break, he came back home. The party was mostly his colleagues being considerate, but a drunk Bobby started giving orders.
Hey, we're out of drinks, bring some more.
As he said this, a colleague went to get them, but that only made him angrier. Don't use my colleague, you've embarrassed me again. His colleagues, looking disdainful, soon said they had to leave. Fortunately, it was the holiday season, so there were plenty of excuses. As they left, he passed out, and I saw them out. One of them apologized profusely as they were leaving.
We heard you were pregnant, but didn't expect you to be at home. Please take care of yourself.
And stopped me as I tried to follow them to the door. After that, I don't remember much for a while. Later, Wallace told me she couldn't get through on the phone and found me unconscious when she arrived. She had called an ambulance in a hurry. I regained consciousness on a hospital bed. Still feeling weak, I decided to keep my eyes closed and rest a bit. Just then, the door to the hospital room opened. What the hell, you're sleeping soundly. I rushed here for nothing. The house is still a mess, nobody's there, and I get a message to come to this hospital? You've embarrassed me in front of my colleagues. It's definitely divorce now. In fact, wake up already, I need you to sign the divorce papers. The juniors were disgusted with you. A wife who can't even prepare properly, maybe I should divorce you quickly without you noticing the affair. That way, I can marry my girlfriend. No alimony, huh? Am I a genius or what? No, you're an idiot, I wanted to shout, but I had to pretend not to notice and gather evidence. But how? Just then, Bobby's mobile phone chimed with a notification. He looked puzzled. Why am I getting a message from Vivian? What? I'm keeping Vivian's phone? Take care of your wife if you want it back? Who is this, some creepy person? Take care of my wife, like I don't need her. Thinking I was unconscious, he kept talking. Ever since getting pregnant, she's gotten lazy with housework, doesn't care about her appearance, and just keeps getting fatter. That's natural, I thought, I'm pregnant with your baby. I need nutrition for two. The doctor even said my weight gain was appropriate. He probably doesn't know that. Ah, if only my mobile phone was nearby, I could have recorded this. And to think he's having an affair too. His morals are skewed, but so is that woman. Would you be able to forgive yourself if you were in the same position? Is it even right to engage in adultery with a straight face when your beloved's baby is about to be born? In the first place, is it right to commit adultery? Hey, is the person messaging actually her affair partner? That would make sense, huh? So she having an affair too? What ridiculous reasoning. Does he have the brain of an elementary school detective? People who cheat always think their partner is doing the same. Bobby must know he's in the wrong. There's only one truth, and no justification for infidelity. Then his phone rang again. Huh? I'm not the affair partner? Is this guy psychic? Then who is it? Strangers shouldn't meddle in our business. Who's a stranger? This is a family matter. The door opened, and Wallace barged in. What? Why's Mom here? Why wouldn't I be? I sent the message. Bobby seemed flustered by this unexpected visitor. No way, you came all the way from home? I didn't think you would be here, let alone have Vivian's phone. Don't tell me, Mom, you've been brainwashed with lies to excuse her laziness, right? She began to speak quietly, regretting what he had done. I've been listening to everything you've said since entering this room, using the mobile phone there. He looked where she was pointing and seemed shocked. She had hidden her phone in the gap of my bed and connected a call to my phone. The recording function was also used, so the affair was fully exposed. The worst part is, you neglected Vivian, who's risking her life to give birth to your baby, to mess around. You don't deserve to be a dad. It was an impulse. Vivian hadn't been paying attention to me for a while. Just then, one of my junior female colleagues was, well, giving me attention. Hearing those words, I reached my limit and sat up, shouting. Don't joke with me. I'm trying to give birth with all my might. And you play around on a whim? He, finding no words to reply, looked down in silence. You have acted despicably. If you mention divorce, I have no choice but to accept it. When it happens, I'll be on her side. I almost died giving birth to you. I've told you this before. Your sister can't forgive your actions as a woman either. She just gave birth recently too. He made a face as if to say, crap. Doesn't he understand that when having an affair? But look, I rushed here as soon as she woke up. The affair was a momentary lapse. I swear I won't do it again. I really wasn't myself. I won't invite work colleagues home anymore. I'll end the affair and give all my salary to you. Please, consider this my last chance. Saying this, he kept apologizing. I smiled and called out to him. Bobby. Hearing my voice, he looked at me, as if relieved of his guilt. Thank you, Vivian. I'll really change. What are you misunderstanding? This was your last chance. Understanding my words, his face shifted from relief to despair. By the way, Dad, me, and your sister haven't forgiven you. Dad even said, don't come home even if you divorce. Basically, you're disowned. I think that's only fair. No way, give me a break. Where am I supposed to go? He grasped at her feet as if begging. Bobby, you neglected your wife who's about to give birth, had an affair, invited colleagues home, and sent her to the grocery store. That's 2 strikes for me and Dad. So there's still... Before he could finish, I spoke. No. Sister-in-law makes it 3 strikes, and I'm the game set. We'll divorce once the baby is born. As for the broken promise, make sure you pay alimony and child support as a dad. I need to be a father to the baby. Don't divorce me. I'll give you all my money. I'll lose my position at work. Even now, he seemed more concerned about saving face. That's fine. Your work colleagues have already contacted me while you were on your way here. Remember when you invited them home without notice and gave out my contact? Someone I didn't recognize called, saying they were supposed to come today. I didn't know the situation, thought your wife went back to her parents. It'll probably be gossip after the holiday season. Please, explain to them it's a misunderstanding. Still seeking self-preservation, he didn't seem to care about me. Misunderstanding? It's the truth. The baby will be raised by me, my parents, and your family. We all agreed unanimously. By now, and make sure you keep your promises this time. This was what Bobby had told me over the phone. Her parents, your dad and sister, are coming soon.
Take responsibility for your actions. We'll apologize for our son's misconduct at the end. Then we'll make sure she and the baby don't suffer. We won't be lenient. We'll front the money, but this isn't for you, it's for her. Work hard at Dad's friend's workplace to pay it back. You won't be comfortable at your current job anyway. You have no choice.
Fine, I'll figure out the money. I'll remarry my girlfriend. She loves me. She's making money online streaming, something about relationship advice. Love Me channel, that's it. I'll join her and make a fortune. Then I'll be a billionaire. Planning all alone, how foolish.
Well, good luck with that, you're a fool till the end. Wallace, it's fine. Bye now.
Bobby left cheerfully, but with trembling feet. He fled before Raphael and Sael arrived. The next day, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. I had a lawyer handle the alimony and child support claims. Of course, I claimed from his girlfriend too. I continued interacting with my ex-husband's parents, and after settling into motherhood, I received alimony from Bobby. He refused the advance from Raphael and borrowed from consumer finance. And it seems, from shady places too. He thought he could repay quickly with his girlfriend's earnings. But reality isn't so sweet. His girlfriend left her job after their relationship became known at the company, making things awkward. The incident of him drinking at home spread around his company, and he quit. His last hope, the streaming, leaked somewhere, and the channel disappeared due to the affair despite being about relationship advice. Doing bad things doesn't pay off. Who leaked it? Sael was giving a thumbs up, but it must be my imagination. If he hadn't mentioned the channel name, maybe it wouldn't have gone this far. In the end, he couldn't pay back and is now missing. My daughter and I will surely be lovingly raised by two wonderful families.